Hi everybody. Today we are going to have the second lecture of the wireless sensor networks subject. There is a slight changes in the number of lectures as well as the arrangement of this. Basically, the first one that I have presented to you in the first lecture about the content of this subject is slightly changed, and then the new slides are already in the system, uploaded to the system. So I have changed the first lecture to the general introduction to wireless sensor network and discords. The second lecture that we are going to go through this in this class is introduction to wireless sensor network. All right, so let's start with what is a wireless sensor. Let's start with the terms wireless. The term wireless gives us an idea that we are not going to use any wire in our network. So everything will go through the space or the data. So for the wireless sensor network, the network is using the wireless technology, of course. We have a sensor technology and protocols, the separate protocol that we will see later, and as well as the computational power, which is one of the main issue in the wireless sensor network. General term of the network refer to any interconnected group or systems that they connect together. They try to communicate with each other. So we call it network. So a network is any method of sharing the information between two systems or more. So for the deployment or implementing the network, we have some challenges that we have to face these challenges. So the first one, we can say how scalable is the network. So meaning that how easy you can expand your network. Let's say you have a network with 2 or 3 nodes, and then you want to make it a bigger network. You want to add some extra node to your network. So how easy you can do that? So we call it scalable network or scalability. The second one is how fault tolerant is the network. How is the network affected by the node failure? So let's say in one network, if one of the node cannot work properly because of physical reason or destruction or destroyment, so what will happen to the rest of the network? What is the network latency? So we will see the latency formulas and so on later, but I'm sure that you know about the latency, right? The data that you are going to send and receive, how fast you can send the data, and when you send the data, how long will take time to reach to the destination. So we consider as a latency. What is a packet loss behavior? So of course, losing the packet in the network is normal. So in all network we have a packet loss, but we have to know the rate. All right. If the packet loss is too much, of course the data will not be used at the destination. So and the behavior is how we have to consider it. That we will see also in details later. So the term wireless normally used to refer to any type of electrical operation which is accomplished without the use of a hard wire connection. So meaning that there is no wire in our network. We call it wireless. So the data will be forwarded or will be sent and received through the space, right? Through the air. So the wireless communication is the transfer of information over a distance without any conductor, electrical conductors or wire. So what is the challenges to deploy or implement the wireless network? So the first one, we have to look at the transmission medium. We look at the vegetations versus desert, high and low humidity, and etc., which is about the medium and area. The second one is the coverage. What is the range of the mode? right? So how far your data can go. Break and reassociate distance. About the second one is the connectivity. How stable is the connection? Is there any disconnection or not? And how often is happening? How is it affected by the change in battery voltage? So if, let's say, you have a node and the battery is too low, so what will happen? The fourth one is the power consumption. How much power does the radio use? And what happens when the voltage drops? So that are the deployment challenge in wireless network. If you look at the revolution of the wireless, in terms of the size, you can see the size reduction of cellular devices or telephones. So starting with a very large and big unit in, let's say, 1978, and comes to very small devices in 2002. So in wireless networking, what basically require is a wired network for sure, which is connected to the gateway and access point, and this is the responsibility of the access point to transfer the data from the wire to the wireless. So meaning that you have a laptop, you have a desktop workstations, you have a PDA with a wireless functionality. Basically, they can send and receive data using the wireless technology. So these data should be sent to a device who can convert these wireless data to wire information or wire data. Because at the end, our internet is a wired network. So we must be able to transfer the data from the wireless to wire. So that is the responsibility of the access point or AP. So this is some of the devices in wireless networking. So what are the threats? Again, our wireless network. Disclosure of sensitive or confidential data. Denial of service, which is the most important type of attacks. Unauthorized access to wireless enabled resources. And the potential weakening of existing security measures on connected wired network and systems. These are, of course, we have a lot of threats, but this kind of, we can categorize it like this. Let's look at the infrastructure-based wireless system that we talked about it last week a little bit. We have an infrastructure-based and we have infrastructure-less, which we call it a wireless sensor network. So before we go to that, we look at the infrastructure-based wireless network. So this is a typical wireless network based on the infrastructure. For example, the GSM, which stands for Global System for Mobile Communication, or UMTS, which is a Universal Mobile Telecommunication System, that is a 3G systems. That all networks using the infrastructure-based wireless system. So they need a backbone, of course, and the base station connected to a wired backbone network. Mobile entities communicate with the base station, in fact, and the base station will route the data to the gateway and server through the backbone. The traffic between the different mobile entities is relayed by base station and wired backbone. And the mobility is supported by switching from one base station to another one. So let's say you are moving around, you're talking to your friend using your mobile phone, and you are driving from one city to another, but you are not facing any disconnection. All right. So what will happen? We basically we passing through a lot of base stations. We are connecting to the first one. While we reach to the second one, we disconnected from the first one, connected to the second one, and we repeat the same things again and again. So meaning that mobility, you can move around, you can have a mobility while you are not disconnecting from the network. So in fact, you are switching from one base station to another one. And the backbone infrastructure required for, of course, the administrative task. So to handle this kind of network. So what will happen if, let's say, the infrastructure is not available in an area? Let's say you have a disaster area, you have underdeveloped countries that they do not have the infrastructure. So how we can give them the network capabilities? So some places it is too expensive or inconvenient to set up an infrastructure network. For example, in remote or large construction sites. And sometimes there is no time to set it up. Even though you have money, you have a infrastructure can be done over there, but you don't have time to do that, which is military operations, for example. So in these kind of situations, you have to go for the infrastructure free or infrastructure less wireless network. So the solution, we call it the ad hoc networks. So try to construct a network without infrastructure using networking abilities. All right, we call it a ad hoc network. So the laptops in a conference room, let's say you want to have a conference in one area, in one hotel, for example, and you just want to set up a network connection for only for few hours, for example. You don't want to set up for forever. So basically, you no need to go for the infrastructure based networking. So you can go for the ad hoc network. So the possible application for infrastructure-free network, or we call it the infrastructure-less, meaning that without infrastructure. So one of the possible application is a factory floor automation, disaster recovery, car-to-car communication. You cannot have a fixed infrastructure for car-to-car communication for sure. Military networking, search and rescue, personal area networking. You have a watch, you have a glass PDA, medical appliances, you want to connect to the network, collect all the data from each one, and then, of course, you cannot have a wire from watch to your glass, to your PDA, to your medical appliances in necessary cases. So you cannot do that. So the applications of the possible application could be one of these things. But what is a problem and challenges? Of course, if you go from the infrastructure base to infrastructure less or infrastructure free network, you have to face some problem and challenges, and you have to solve them. So in ad hoc network, we do not have a central infrastructure. So, and of course, the things become much more difficult. Problems are due to the lack of central entity for organization available. So if you have a central entity, that central entity then control everything. And most of the management tasks, you can give it to the central entity. But without that, you have to distribute it to the all nodes or stations, or station. The second one is limited range of wireless communication. The third one could be the mobility of participants. They are moving around here and there. And every time you have to manage them, but you don't have the central entity to do that. And the fourth one could be the battery operated entities. So the entities with using the battery, also they have some limitations we have to consider. When we say no central entity, meaning that self-organization. So we don't have a central entity like base station. In an infrastructure based network, we have a base station. So that base station can help a lot. But without a base station, the participant must organize themselves into a network.